and that's a topic of weed whacking. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're talking about a very important topic, and that's a topic of weed whacking. Go to Manscaped, get 20% off plus free shipping with the code FAB. And usually when we talk about plucking those nose hairs and doing trimming around the ears and whatnot, most of us are used to doing that with weapons such as this. While effective, they can be cumbersome. They can prove to be cumbersome. And everyone's personal favorite is also this beauty, something like this. Whilst very effective, it's also hard because sometimes you don't have the right extension cords and whatnot. So Manscaped has given us this, the Weed Whacker. The Weed Whacker is skin safe. It has a replaceable head. It has high performance motor, so premium 9,000 RPM motor powers. This is something that you would have probably seen in a World War II aeroplane prior to this. And unlike the hedge trimmer, it's cordless and rechargeable, so you can use it anywhere and you can take it with you. And it's really, really a pretty amazing product. It has a smart design. It's intelligently contoured design for you to be able to grip it easily, and it's not going to slip out of your hand, which is an amazing segue to the next part of it, which is that fact that it's waterproof, so you can use it in the shower and whatnot. So this is a pretty amazing piece of machinery here for all of us that need it. And everyone needs it, because you don't want to be that person. You don't want to be the person that has the nose hairs and the ear hairs sticking out. My dad used to take me to a barber in Liverpool, and ironically, this barber, he was an older guy, had the worst hairs coming out of his ears and the worst hairs coming out of his nose. And always, as a little kid, I used to always watch that. So I never wanted that myself. So please, Manscaped, get 20% off plus free shipping with the code FAB. Thank you, people. Hello, guys. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to talk about the weekend's fights, I suppose, and have a chat and see what effect that has, if any, on the appropriate divisions. I see that some people have already commented. We just started, and some people have commented already. Mr. Always 420 and Matt Heffler as well. Thank you for joining us, guys. I've already commented. How about Masvidal Usman official for UFC 251? Both these guys have commented on that. I think that's pertinent, I suppose, in the Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad fight, which we'll cover later on in the show. I just want to get everyone's thoughts on that. I'd probably like to begin with Eric Anders and Darren Stewart, like right at the start of the show, because then we'll work our way up the card. But as far as that Masvidal versus Usman is concerned, that's a fight I want to see. Like the first time that they fought, I think Masvidal gave a good account of himself. I'd like to see Masvidal with a full camp. I know that he was training for Usman. Don't get me wrong, I know that, but I'd like to see. But he wasn't training for Usman, and he wasn't training for a belt. So, I'd be very, very interested to see that fight for sure. Hoodie J Jr. disagrees. He says Usman beats Masvidal every time. What a waste of time. I don't agree with you that he beats Masvidal that easily every single time, but I do think it's a little bit. There's a few other guys in there that I'd like to see, fight. I don't know, where does it leave Edwards as well? I suppose guy comes off after a year and a half off, and he looked good, man. He looked really good. He was winning that fight. He was winning that first round quite easily, and that happened, the eye poke. So very, very interesting. I'm curious as to where people think that leaves Edwards. What's next for Edwards, I suppose. That's a big one, I suppose. Eric Anders versus Darren Stewart. I was watching that fight. Eric Anders is a big boy. He's a very, very big boy for middleweight. I was watching him against Darren Stewart there, but he seemed rather mechanical on the feet. He didn't seem comfortable with what he was doing on the feet. And Darren Stewart did get the better of him at the start of the fight, until Eric Anders was able to start, out grappling him and leaning on him and using his size and his strength. It's beyond me, though, how that knee happened again, straight after last week that, it happening. But I will say this, I don't know how Eric Anders does moving up the division, because that in the middleweight division, it is dominated by very good strikers. It's like at the top end, you have Israel, Rob, of course, both those guys. I think probably a fair bit ahead of everyone else. But then you have Gastelum. I'm trying to think of the guys that are Darren Till, Gastelum, Paulo Costa, all these like very very striking heavy division, and I didn't like what I saw in Uriah Hall. I didn't like what I saw in Eric Anders in his reactions to getting hit early on in the fight. Thoughts on that? I wish Angel Rumenov Bogev says, I wish Wonder Boy could get a shot again. I think he has a better shot than Masvidal just because he's so crafty. I definitely agree. I agree. I would like to see Wonder Boy versus Usman, 100%. I'd like to see Edwards versus Wonder Boy as well. I'd like to see Edwards versus Covington. There are a couple of fights that I'd like to see. Wonder Boy is the fight to make. Hoodie J Jr. says Uriah Hall. Agreed. And Matt Heffler, I do agree. I'd rather see Wonder Boy at this stage. And Wonder Boy beat Masvidal, you know. And granted, I think that the problem is that Masvidal's a bigger card, a bigger draw, and I'm a huge fan of Masvidal as well. But he is a bigger draw than Wonder Boy at this stage in the career, and that's what's going to get bums on seats for the UFC. But I was super impressed with Edwards. I was really, really impressed with his footwork. I was impressed with his ability to cut the cage off and his ability to not get pressured into the cage with Bilal's striking. I was very, very impressed by that. In the Mateos and Nicolau versus Manuel Cape fight, Mr. Always says, this is why I don't like champs calling fights. Yeah, I think that there should be a ranking system. I do agree. I do think that I don't like that. I don't really like that. And Hoodie J Jr. says, what do you do with Leon now? What do you do? To me, it wasn't no contest, obviously, but he looked fantastic and he was on his way to winning that fight, I believe. He looked really, really good. I don't know. I'd like to see him fight a Wonder Boy, or I'd like to see him fight a Covington or someone like that. That'd be me. I'd like to see him fight one of those guys. Yeah, Leon versus Colby, Matt Heffler. You're right. I would like to see something like that. I'd like to see how Leon has adjusted his grappling to face someone like Covington, and that will give us an indication of how he would do against someone like Usman. Ooh, Leon versus Burns. That is Mr. Always 420. Thank you, sir. That one interests me. Leon versus Gilbert Burns. That'd be a barn burner. That'd be a crazy fight. I don't know, man. I don't know who I'd favor in that fight. Obviously, again, the grappling favors Gilbert. He's got a lot of power. He punches harder in those first few rounds than Leon does, but Leon is very methodical, very good with his footwork. I don't know. That's an interesting fight. Super Skunk says, don't you think fighters should make sacrifices like not having kids in order to focus on their training and make the best out of their career? Are you asking me if I think? Well, I think sacrifices need to be made. I don't think fighters should make those sacrifices, or those ones in particular, because people can have kids and have amazing careers. That's not the issue. But I think sacrifices for you to do anything, any kind of career, at a successful level, sacrifices have to be made. Whether that's going to be you have kids later, or whether it's going to be you do have kids, but there's other things you can't do. But sacrifices have to be made in order for you to achieve, anything in any kind of career. Ben says, if Manel would just throw more, he would be 2-0 in the UFC right now. Personally, I thought he won the fight, but it was a close one. Do Leon and Gilbert, Colby Wonderboy, and Bilal Kessa. Mate, I can't disagree. As far as with the matchups, as far as like Manel, I thought it was very, very close as well. I just think when it's that close, it can go either way. And I do agree that Manel threw the more power, the bigger shots, and maybe did more damage. But the fact remains that Nicolau was still able to stay in the fight, was still able to come forward, was still able to land a lot especially in that third round. And he landed. He landed the spinning elbow. He landed a whole bunch of stuff. It Manel seemed unfazed with it, but you can't take shots like that and then complain about losing. I thought it was super close. Hamzat versus Colby, that'd be a good fight. I'd love to see that one, Jay. And Matt Heffler says Leon's takedown defense is insane. Could kill getting to the ground. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But Gilbert does have a lot of power in his hands, and he throws it, you know, with abandon. I don't know that I know that he wouldn't be able to do that for 5 rounds against Edwards. He can't just throw crazy leather for 5 rounds. So I don't know. That'd be very, very interesting fight. I'd really like to see that fight. Yeah, the Cape fight, man, Manel Cape, he's I'm not gonna say he looks like he's got the goods, but he hasn't been able to put it together yet. That fight in particular, I saw Mateus Nicolau take him down, control him, win that first round. How much power that might have taken out of his shots, I don't know. The second round was all Cape, but then in the third round, it got close. It got close. I still had Cape kind of winning that, but I don't think it was I don't think it was a bad call. I can't say that. James Adjustment says, I'm taking siesta to your beautiful voice. Thank you, sir. Jim Jones, Nelson was able to take Edwards down, so I imagine Burns would be able to. I think so. I think Edwards has been taken down a fair bit, man. Like I don't know how. Like, I'm not saying it's not good, but he has been taken down a fair bit. Having said that, though, he really impressed me against Gunnar Nelson. Just his ability to grapple the way that he does. So I don't know, but Gilbert Burns, man, he's world champion in BJJ. He's done some amazing things. So I don't know. I want to see that fight. That's all I got to say. I want to see that fight. I want to see Burns versus Edwards. CSS Voden says people should forget about Chimaev and let him rest and fully recover. Oh man, I think it's testament to how amazing he is that people still talking about him. Jay says Cape underwhelms me every time. I don't know that he underwhelms me, but I certainly have a like this feeling where I'm like, man, you can see that he's got the potential and that he could do better, but he just comes undone a little bit. How do you like Yahya? I like him. I think he's a fantastic grappler. I think he's an amazing grappler. G Money says, hey coach, is a straight cross down the pipe the best answer for calf kicks? Smellersberger got the KO win off it. Jan over Corey Anderson, and many more examples. Thanks. It's funny you say that, depending on which side they're calf kicking you. But the calf kick, you have to be relatively close to throw it. It's not really like a kick you're going to throw from far away. So yeah, like big punches down the barrel are going to affect you if you can catch them for sure. A lot of it with a calf kick is you got to be aware of it, your movement, and if you're going to check, you have to check it perfect. You have to try to check it on the foot with your shin. Otherwise, it's going to still affect you. Pantoja has a hard fight coming to UFC. That's got to be said. Super Skunk. The fight with Ferguson seems like the perfect stage for Darius to shine and shock the world. Quite underrated fighter, in my opinion. Beneil Darius has done a bunch of stuff in the UFC. He's one of those guys, in my opinion, that's always a hard fight. He's always going to be a hard fight. So that fight with Ferguson is interesting, man. I think, again, Beneil is one of those guys that he hasn't quite put it all together. He's got all the skills, all the ability, but he's just, the stars haven't aligned for him. I'll tell you that. And so yeah, we have to. Hopefully, we get to see him, everything click for him one of these days. Jim Jones, yeah, I agree. That would be a great fight. He just doesn't let go. It's from Jay. Are you talking about Cape? CSS Voden says, I can't believe I just destroyed Tucker that quick. Man, he caught him. He just caught him like on the button. I don't know that it was a destruction as far as like, um, he didn't dismantle him or whatever. They swung and I just got him flush. Steve E says, "Do you think that fighters picking fights but continuously saying they will fight anyone anytime is understandable given it's their livelihood?" Define picking fights. Do I think that fighters that because you got to understand sometimes you probably have to elaborate because I'm not fully understanding the question. A lot of the times the fighters aren't saying no to the fight. The fighters are saying no to the conditions of the fight. So, if they offer you, who would you rather fight? Would you rather fight a super hard guy for half the money, or would you rather fight an easier guy for double the money? You didn't say no to that guy. You you said no to the conditions of the fight. That's what happens a lot of the time. GG. Covington versus Wonder Boy seems like it has more chance of happening than Covington versus Edwards, just based on what Colby has been saying. I agree, but I'd love to see any of those fights. Jim Jones says, sadly, I think that Ferguson is on a serious decline. Same goes for Woodley, in my opinion. I'd like to see Ferguson in this fight versus Benil, and then we'll be able to have a good indication of how far along that decline he is. But Hoodie J says, how is Benil only 31? Yikes. Man, Benil looks like he's been around forever. Ben, how big of a factor do you think Cape having to fight barefoot instead of fighting with shoes on is? During all of his Ryzen fights, he was wearing shoes. Seems to lose his footing in the UFC cage often. I mean, if he used to, but having said that, I'd imagine that he would train barefoot as well. You know what I mean? Knowing that you're going to fight barefoot and knowing that you have to make that adjustment. But not necessarily just not talking about Cape, but the difference between fighting barefoot and fighting with shoes on is quite huge. As far as like getting grip on the floor, getting a purchase on the floor. If you're fighting in MMA, it's you get your feet caught in situations you can't get them as readily out of. You can't use them as readily in submissions and in the guard and whatnot. The shoes can be quite cumbersome, but on the feet, they're very, very grippy. It gives you a lot more grip. You're able to sit on your punches a lot more. Super skunk. How, coach, do you think Woodley would be a champ at Bellator? I don't know. I don't know because Bellator's got good fighters, man. They do have good fighters. You just don't always know them. Like you saw now, for example, Rory when he went over there, he had a mixed bag of success. He didn't have it all his own way. You know, Douglas Lima's no joke. That like those fighters in there, they're no joke. So no, you don't just have it all your way over there. So I don't know that. I mean, he could be a champion. He's a fantastic fighter, but I don't know. There's some good fighters out there. CSS Voden says, "Do you think that's unfair that Masvidal gets second title shot even though Wonder Boy beat him?" I mean, we were talking about that earlier. Like, what in the UFC, I mean, Wonder Boy doesn't have as big of a following as Masvidal. That's the fact. So I think that Wonder Boy has done. If Masvidal gets a shot, I think Wonder Boy deserves one too. But I don't think that that's what matters. I don't think that it's about what's fair or whatnot. I would like to see Wonder Boy get a shot for sure. I'd like to see him get a shot at the title. I'd like to see him get a fight for the belt. But I mean, that's me. You know what I mean? Like, I think he deserves a shot at the title. Um, but that's not how the cookie crumbles. Matt Heffler says there were comments on Twitter from fighters regarding the slippery nature of the cage canvas, as opposed to like zebra or dolomere mats. Why is that? It could be the sponsors. It could be the way that the things are printed onto the canvas. It could be extra moisture. It could be blood on the canvas. It could be fighters are wet from the corner, or they're carrying extra sweat, or anything like that. But I think the way that things are printed on sometimes affect the canvas. Generally the UFC canvas is quite coarse. It's quite rough. It's not that smooth, you know. But any extra, like if you put water on those sort of canvases, it gets extremely slippery. CSS Voden says, "Why would Kevin Lee fight? Why? Who should Kevin Lee fight? He was calling out Ferguson 1 month ago." I don't know, man. See, to me, Kevin Lee at lightweight, we're talking about, is another guy that does so well sometimes and then doesn't do as well other times. He's an incredibly gifted guy. I've seen him in real life, and he's a big boy, man. He's a really big guy for lightweight. Um, Very thick, broad guy. I don't know. It's interesting because I'd like to see what happens between Gregor Gillespie and Brad Riddell this weekend. Because if Gregor loses to Brad Riddell, then Brad Riddell and Kevin Lee would be a really good fight. I think that fight would be really, really interesting. It's going to that fight I'm actually hanging for this weekend is Gregor. Is it this weekend? Gregor versus Brad Riddell. That's going to be a cracker fight. I'm really excited to see that because I think that Riddell can get up a few times from the wrestling, you know, and provided that he doesn't get, if he gets taken down, he doesn't get held down. If he gets taken down, he gets back up. That's going to be very interesting because there's no chance of Gregor Gillespie being able to hang with him on the feet. I'm not saying he can't clip him. I'm not saying he can't catch him with something, but Brad Riddell's striking is no joke. It's so I don't see Gregor being able to hang with him on the feet like that. If he does, I'll be super impressed. But I don't see it. But having said that, I love these grappler versus striker matchups. Um, are you okay? Sorry, I'm just reading. Aljo mentioned I was spraying the canvas with something between rounds and that it might be that making it slippery. Maybe. I don't know. I just said it then, actually, Jay. I just spoke about it then. I think Riddell. I think Riddell, but I'm a little bit biased being that he's from this part of the world. Jim Jones. I'd pick Lima to beat this version of Woodley. So would I. Matt Heffler. Uh, if that's what mattered, Rob will be back in there against Izzy. Yeah, I don't know. I can't say. James Adjustman, did you hear about the Hans Mollenkamp thing? I knew there was something off about that guy. I did not hear about it. SSJ Mig says, Sup, man, you're getting me through my overnight shift right now. I'm glad I am, sir. I'm glad I am. Thank you for watching. Thank you for believing in the show. I really enjoy hanging out with you guys. So thank you. Super Skunk, do you believe the UFC antitrust lawsuit will change anything for fighters and for the sport in the next few years? I don't know what the outcome's going to be. Like I don't know. It might not be that favorable for the fighters. Who knows? The UFC's got very deep pockets as well. Um, so I don't know. I don't know. I see that a big issue there with the fighters is that there's no any form. I'm not talking even about a union. I'm talking about any form of unity. And in any situation where the workforce is not scarce, like anytime where you don't have any bargaining power, anytime where there's a bunch of people willing to do the job that you're saying no to for less than what you're willing to do it for, you don't really have any bargaining power. So in the UFC, if you say I don't want to fight, they'll say, well, who wants this fight? And people will fight, and they'll fight for less money. So it's it's very hard. That's a big problem there as well. Ooh, Kevin Lee versus Dan Hooker. I like that fight. I like that fight. And Ale Quinta has beat Kevin Lee twice, and Hooker beat the brakes out of Al, beat the brakes off Big Al. And I like him. I like Ale Quinta a lot, a lot. Um, that'd be a cracker fight. That'd be a cracker fight. I don't know who wins that one. I really don't know who wins that one. I don't know if Kevin Lee gets him to the ground, Hooker's very good on the ground, but Kevin Lee has a really, 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 really good ground game. Really good ground game. I really, really rate that ground game. That rear naked choke that he does, the way that he does it, the way that he sets it up, the pressure that he has on top. Very, very good grappling for MMA. Which fight would sell more pay-per-views, Ngannou versus Jones or Stipe versus Jones? I don't know, I really don't. I think Ngannou has, even without the belt, has a monster factor. which Stipe doesn't, which is weird because Stipe is fantastic. But the winner out of the two of them would sell all the tickets in the world. If Ngannou loses to Stipe, he'll lose a lot of momentum. I feel like some fighters need a crowd to wake up and get into the fight with nerves, reactions, and everything. Do you agree, Coach? I do. We had Alex Volkanovski on the show not long ago, and he was talking about how not having a crowd and whatnot affected him. He liked having the crowd in there. So yeah, I do think some fighters it affects absolutely. Ryan Sturtus asks, based on your experience, have you observed an unspoken fighter code fighting through illegal? Sorry, man, you killed me with your grammar. I'm going to guess that what you're saying, Ryan, is have I observed a fighter code where guys will fight through eye pokes and whatnot, or does it vary from fighter to fighter? Um, no, I haven't observed something like that. I think some guys probably maybe do, but the end, like say what happened with Bilal, he can't fight through that. His eye was bleeding. Like it's ridiculous, to expect someone to fight through that. Like if you got to think, man, if you were working in an office and that happened to you in an office, somebody poked you in the eye to the point that your eye bled, nobody would expect you to finish the day off at work. And I'm talking about an office job. You would be sent immediately to emergency, and no one would even expect you to come back the next day. That's what, like, let alone fight a monster like Leon Edwards. Um, so yeah, that's the first thing. The second thing is like there's different types. This is why people don't understand as well. There's different types of eye pokes. You know what I mean? There's eye pokes where it's just like, oh, for a second you can blink through it, and then there's eye pokes like what happened to Bilal, and then there's anything in between. And sometimes it doesn't look that bad, but just scratches your eye, and that's even worse. So I think it just depends on the eye poke. Um, Hooker versus Mahashev interests me as well. Ooh, so many good fights at lightweight, man. Yeah, that'd be another good fight for Mahashev. Hooker, mate, that'd be a really good fight. Stipe versus Francis. Who do you have? Says Atik Altaf. I think I have Stipe having more ways to win. This is a hard one. He has more ways to win. That's given. Like he can outbox Francis. He has power in his hands in his own right. Um, he's got the wrestling and the ground game to do it. Francis's ground game now, as of late, is an enigma. I don't know how good it is. The way that Francis has to win though is like a cheat code. You know what I mean? He's only got really that one way to win, which is with his striking, but it's like a cheat code. If he touches you, you're gone. So I don't. That doesn't mean that Francis is just because he's got less ways of winning is less effective. But I want to say Stipe. I want to say Stipe. James Adjustment. In an alternate universe, Rob's building houses for Ala Quinta's real estate agency. I don't understand the reference, but okay. James Adjustment. If Francis wins, set up Lewis versus Francis ASAP. Possibly. GG. Adjustment James, dude, you're really witty. He is. Jay, what does Ngannou do if he loses to Stipe? Drop down to light heavyweight? I really doubt that he could drop down to light heavyweight. Mr. Always 420. How about Davy Grant KO on Saturday? Had hated seeing Martinez go down, but what a nice KO. Let's talk about that fight, actually, the Davy Grant fight. That was an interesting fight, man. Like the timing that Davy Grant has on his strikes is really weird. He has an awkward distance and an awkward timing with the way he throws his shots. They look like they're slow, and they look like there's not a lot on him. Like his kicks are slow. They're but they're not. But they look slow and they look awkward. And the punches are kind of kind of slow punches. And it's the timing is really awkward. It would have taken some adjusting to do. James Adjustment, GG, that sounds sarcastic, but I'm taking it as a compliment. Yeah, no, I was impressed by that with Davy Grant. I thought that he looked like a really awkward kind of character to fight. Someone that'd be hard to get their timing. Christian Laurent, given what you saw from Edwards, what adjustments do you expect him to make if he rematches Bilal? Man, like he looked amazing against Bilal, in my opinion. He fights like how he fights. He's not a huge puncher. Um, and he's not incredibly quick, but he has really good ability to move in and out to cut the ring off, and that looked really, really good yesterday. He was a little bit more trigger happy with his shots as he started to get the timing better and he started to get his sense of distance. Um, he was very impressive. I think that Edwards and Bilal, I don't know that you'd make that fight, although it got stopped early, and I feel sorry for Bilal, but that fight was on its way to being stopped, in my opinion, at some point, like whether it was going to be late in the second or third. I think Edwards was just going to continue to get that timing going, boom, 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 and land shot a few more shots. Like that head kick that he landed was beautiful, and you see Edwards, he's very methodical, very calculating. He didn't just lose his mind and try and finish him there. He hit him with a few 1-2s. He just kept on him, and that type of striking will break you down. Juiceman, it's hard to come across someone as sincere via text. GG. Super Skunk, it seems like USADA and the UFC have been secretly hiding drug tests like they already did in the past with Lesnar versus Hunt. Can we trust that Jeff Nowitzki guy? No. No, man. Like, it's no, you can't. No, you can't. Jim Jones, do you think it's possible, Fab, that Stipe might have lost a step with him getting up there in age and might be there more to get to be hit? Yeah, 100%, Jim Jones. It could be. It could absolutely. And I think that those fights with Cormier wouldn't have helped. There were some big shots in those fights. Obviously the one that stopped him, but in the second fight with, like, yeah, those fights with third fight with Cormier, they weren't small fights. There was damage done as well. James Adjuceman. Side note: this is the most South American I've ever seen. Fab. He swapped the puffer jacket for some alpaca sweater. Hashtag bring back the puffer. Yeah, you know what happened? I was actually going to do it in a t-shirt, but then out of nowhere, dude, it just got real cold here all of a sudden. And this room is hot when it's hot outside and cold when it's cold, and it is cold outside. Like, not like I always talk to her son Ahmed. It's not cold like for England, Europe, but it's cold for me. Having said that, I was out there surfing with no wetsuit on. But it's cold. It's cold out here, man. For me now, it's drizzly. It's in the water. Temperature is still good, but the ambient temperature is not. It's like it's dropped a little bit. It's probably, I don't know, 19, 20 degrees, which is cold for people in Australia. Um, who wins bare knuckle boxing, Overeem or JDS? I don't know, man. I think JDS probably. Any thoughts on Hakparas judo sweeps? I thought the outer reaps from the outside foot position were super slick. I didn't get to see him, man. But the mechanics of judo throws expose a single leg so much in my experience. I'm amazed when people get them. Um, you're saying if you single leg a judoka, yeah, they're hard to single leg because they do have very good throws from those positions. Their balance is really, really good. Any judoka that can get their mind around not having the gi and use the body's mechanics instead of the gi is super hard to take down. Really, really good throws. Sport reactions. Edwards or Colby deserve the title shot, not Masvidal, the 50-50 fighter who has he beat. Now, I think Masvidal's a fantastic fighter, but I do agree with you that Edwards and Colby are more deserving at this juncture to than Masvidal, or at least we should see Masvidal fight one of those two. If we're talking about somewhat fair rankings, GG, when fighting someone like Davy Grant, what should be your game? What should be your plan B if the original game plan seems too risky once you're in front of him? I don't know, because I don't know. It depends on what abilities your fighter has themselves. You can't just say to someone, "I'll go in there and out wrestle someone" when they're not a wrestler. Even if you got good wrestling, like even if you learned how to wrestle, but if you're not a wrestler, you're not going to go out and out wrestle someone that can wrestle. For instance, I'm just giving an example. I'm not talking necessarily about him. So it depends what kind of guy you're fighting, and depends on what kind of abilities you have. It was really interesting to me to watch the way that he punched and that, like, it had a awkward distance and awkward timing, like a kind of awkward thing to pick up on. And I kind of like Jan Blachowicz has a similar style in that he has this kind of awkward sort of stance and punch or whatever, which makes it a little bit difficult to get the timing on. Jay, it's crazy we have never had Miocic versus Lewis. No. Sports reactions. Will you watch Tai Tuivasa this weekend? I will absolutely watch Tai Tuivasa this weekend. Big fan of Tai. Super Skunk. What happens to Ferguson if he loses his next fight? Do you think they'll keep him on the roster? I don't know. I think a lot of that comes down to his relationship with the UFC, if they'll keep him on the roster or not. I'm in a t-shirt and shorts in the South Island of New Zealand. What what is going on over there? Oh, you know what, man? It's probably colder over there, but I'm a bit of a bitch. I'll tell you how I'll tell you right now how cold it is here. And you can tell me if you think it's cold. It's probably not cold for everybody else, but for me, it's cold. Let's temperature. It's 19 degrees. 19 degrees here, Celsius, which for me is cold. It's jumper weather for fun. And I live right on the coast, so I get a bit of you get the wind. So wind chill factor, maybe it's like 14 degrees. Martovi, hey Fab, looking good as always. Thank you, sir. I didn't get a chance to watch the fight or tune in on the commentary. Internet's down and reception is stuffed at the moment. I am sorry to hear that, sir. Very, very sorry to hear that. But thank you for joining us today, and thank you for always supporting the show. Christian, who has the potential to become the next Anzac champion in the UFC? I don't know. I don't want to like Rob. I think, but other than that, um, I think there's a lot, man. I like Dan Hooker's always in the mix. I like Brad Riddell, Jimmy Crute. I don't know if he'd be the champion right now, like how we see him right now, skill wise. But he's such a young guy, and he's always learning and coming up, and he's got ability. But I think, my opinion, I think that we have in Australia and New Zealand a crop of young guys, girls that are coming up, and they're watching people fight and win from Australia and New Zealand in the UFC. We've had a guy, I think the first guy to fight for a belt in the UFC from Australia, correct me if I'm wrong, was Elvis Sinisic. And when he fought Tito, and Tito beat him up. And I love Elvis, man. Big fan of Elvis. I like Elvis. I trained with Elvis for a while. So all the love in the world to him. And he was a pioneer of the sport of MMA in Australia, and fought guys. Before Babalu, he fought Tito. He fought these guys. Frank Shamrock. He did really well. I think he got a draw with Frank Shamrock. Matsui fought a whole bunch of dudes. Travern, and so there was a group of us that were a little bit younger than him. I'll throw some names out there. They were a little bit younger than him. We were like above our age was like Alex Cook, Larry Papadopoulos, Anthony Perosh, Elvis Sinisic, Chris Haseman, Mark Hunt, obviously. And so we kind of 10 years below them, we were watching them and their successes and their trials and tribulations. And then there was kind of my age group of guys, which I think was like George Sataropoulos, Kyle Noak, Dan Kelly, that kind of age group. And below us, like 10 years below this age group, was your Robert Whitakers, your Volkanovskis. And those guys are super, super impressive. So I think in Australia, you're going to have a new undercurrent of guys that are coming up in the next 5 years or so, 5 to 10 years, of guys that have been watching it for a long time, knowing that you can train in Australia, you can train in New Zealand, and that you can win belts coming out of here, and you can believe in the process and believe in what we're doing already in Australia and New Zealand, which in the past wasn't the case. There was always, even I think, even up until Rob, we were the first ones to kind of do it completely homegrown. And even then, it was like, no, you got to be training overseas. You got to be training overseas. Whereas now, No, you don't have to. Like, people know this. And when you believe in the process and you grow up believing in the process, it's a completely different thing. And I think we're going to have some really amazing fighters coming out of Australia. Um, CSS Voden says, "Do you think people are hating Joe Rogan's commentary because he left YouTube for Spotify?" I I can't comment on that. I don't know that. I didn't even know that they were hating on, because I do every card, so I don't really get to hear the commentary. I have no idea, and I don't really know how the Spotify deal would have affected the like his fan base. I just know that he got paid a crap load of money, and I'm happy for him. Um, and Jay says it's 14 degrees here. 14 degrees is cold, man. It's cold. Um, so Super Skunk, what's the biggest robbery you've seen in MMA? I don't know, dude. There's some calls I disagree with, but I don't know. I, I I don't even like to say robbery, because a lot of times it's closer than you think. It sounds like the characters from a series of Underbelly. Yes, sir. It's Godzilla. What's your take on bare knuckle fighting? Can you see a point in the future where we are back in the Coliseum venue and watching fights to the death? What's your favorite thing to make that takes under 20? Fried rice is my favorite thing to make, because you can make it as good and as nutrient dense and nutrient rich as possible, and as much as you like it. You can make it as spicy as you like it, whatever, etc., and you can keep it for a week. And it's easy to eat, easy to heat up, no dramas, not too messy, very good. Do I see bare knuckle fighting? Oh, I like it, but I don't. I don't like. I like. I guess the other thing with MMA, with bare knuckle fighting, is that you're not getting like the guys at their peak. You're getting a lot of guys that are kind of at the tail end of their fighting career. So you don't get to see, bare knuckle boxing at its very best, I suppose. Um, I think we are watching fighters in a coliseum. They're just not fighting to the death. Christian Laurent says, "Thank you. What were your thoughts on the Charles Jourdain and Marcelo Rojo fight?" I didn't see it. I didn't see it. Fury and Joshua signed contract today. No date or locations are announced yet. I think Fury versus Joshua. I've got to say Fury beats him, eh? What do you guys think? GG. Biggest robbery is Hendo versus Bisping 2. And yes, I'm biased, but man, cried like a baby when Hendo retired without the belt. I thought that, I don't know if it was a robbery, but my God, there were some big shots landed by Hendo in that fight. Pip Dennison, the man, woke up from his slumber. Pip Dennison is one of my life mentors and surfing coaches, and he says Hefe's fried rice is insane. So he's referring to my fried rice, which I stole the recipe from my wife. But yes, thank you. My Tovi, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you like saying amygdala? Ooh, solid 7. James Adjuseman Raverstein, does your gym do shin conditioning as part of a class? I don't have a gym. I don't have a gym. And no, when I did have a gym, it was a grappling based gym. So no. S Clay says, sounds like Israel doesn't want to fight Rob again, regardless of whether he wins his next fight. I think he's earned it easily after beating Polo. What about you? I haven't heard Israel say he doesn't want to fight Rob. I've never heard that. But I'm not saying he didn't say it. I'm just saying I didn't hear it. I don't really listen and watch what people are saying. I think that Rob's a hard fight for Israel. I think Israel did a fantastic job, and that night was his night. I think that Rob has some momentum now going into this fight with Israel, which he didn't have in the first fight. Israel, Israel is Israel. He has his momentum in that. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I've never heard Israel say it, so it kind of makes the other part redundant of whether or not I I yeah, I don't know. Does he deserve a shot at the belt? Yeah, 100%. I don't know what Israel's going to do. I don't know. Um, to me, if Israel's smart, which he's smart, he doesn't. Why would he want to go over someone that he's already beat again? That's a huge risk. What for? And he's such a big draw, and he's got such a big pool. So I don't know. CSS Voden says, did Hagler die from COVID I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm sad to hear that he passed though. Angle, I think Fury's shown more skills than Joshua, but it's hard to say he's kept up in this downtime waiting. Seems like he may be good for a while until he suddenly gives up again. That is true, Angle. That is true. Who wins, Vittori or Till? I want to say Till, but it'll probably be Vittori. Vittori's one of those guys that I've thought I like. I didn't think he was going to beat Hermanson, but I want to say Till. Ryan Sturts. I don't know. I don't know actually. That'll be that Vittori fight, Vittori versus Till. That will put that will give you a really good indication of where Vittori's at, I believe. Ryan Sturts, do you think champions that had multiple losses early on in their career were just unlucky on those nights, or do you think they reinvented themselves to win the belt? The reinvent yourself is very rare. Like from when you're older, from one thing to another, reinventing yourself per se versus just not fighting a certain way is the two different things. Um, it depends, man. Some people, I'm just trying to think of real big cases of people that completely look different, as an adult, as a grown man or grown woman, say after 28, that completely look different or just improved some skill sets. It's not really reinventing. Um, and fighting, man, is anyone can lose at any time. Anyone can lose at anyone, anytime, anywhere. That's unlucky, or the other guy was lucky. Who knows? But that can happen. It's not a big thing. Um, what's my take on the Holland Brunson fight? Again, I think like Vittori, this will be Holland's one because Holland has had a few close fights there where you look at it and you're like, man, I don't know, like I don't know if he's going to beat Jacare. I don't know if he's going to beat this. He had this split decision win against this person, that split decision win, but then he goes and beats Jacare the way that he did. So that's such a hard one too. I think that this is going to be Holland's come out party. You know what I mean? If he gets through Brunson and he gets through Brunson in good fashion, then because Brunson has had fights with everyone, he's fought everyone. He's fought the best guys in that division, hands down, and he's lost to those top guys. But you get a really good indication of where he's at. So if Holland comes out and does a fantastic job on Brunson, then we may have ourselves a contender. But yeah, I think I don't know who wins that fight. I don't know. I don't know. I think Brunson has the ability to slow that fight down and fight at a good pace like he did against Shabazian. Because I think that he has fought wild in the past and it's paid dividends, but he's also cost him a lot. And I don't know that Kevin Holland has the technical striking that people like Rob and Israel have had, where they fought. It was different, but a similar outcome. Rob was able to weather the storm um, of Brunson's, and then the skill disparity in the striking was huge, and same with Israel. But Israel didn't have to weather the storm; it was a different kind of fight. So I think I don't know that Holland has that. That's the technical stand up. I think that if Brunson can dictate the pace by either going for a takedown when he needs to, not necessarily playing that jiu-jitsu game with him, but just you know getting a takedown if he needs it, um, picking shots off, and he can slow it down. He could win. The problem with someone with like Holland is he can be so erratic. He can get those wins over guys like Jacare and that, but I don't know. I have to see more of him, before I can say against top guys before I can really say X, Y, and Z. CSS Voden, my money would be on Vittori. He's improved substantially and Till hasn't changed a lot. Ibrahim, yeah, I don't know, man. Well, let's see. That one would be a good one. Ibrahim Mahmoud says, "Hey Fab, Costa just pulled out. What should Rob do?" No idea, dude. No idea. Matt Heffler, Vittori gave Izzy problems too. Yeah, he did. He did. He gave him some problems. Can you share your fried rice recipe? You can see my fried rice recipe on my Instagram. So if you follow that, you can see my fried rice recipe on Instagram. You can follow that, and you'll see it. Um, Usman versus Masvidal 261 Florida official. That'll be interesting. Sam Lawrence out of nowhere with a donation of $5. Thank you very much. My child eats tonight. My child eats. We will be able to put some protein in the fried rice. Thank you so much, Sam Lawrence. James Adjuceman says, for always 420. Check out his IG. Thank you, sir. That's right. It's on there. Vittori. Christian Lawrence says, Costa is out due to illness. I did not even know this. I didn't know. That's shit for Rob. That's shit for Rob. And I was just saying, man, somebody's going to step up. Gastelum was going to put his hand up to fight. You know what I mean? I think that will happen. I think that'll happen. I think, my opinion. I'm not saying Costa was scared or anything. I'm just saying, I think Rob is way better than Costa. With all due respect to Costa, I think Rob's way quicker, more dynamic, just as strong, just as he moves a lot better. I think Costa. There are ways for Costa to win, but I don't think so. I don't. I think Rob is pretty much better across the board. And I say that honestly with not much subjectivity, just because I haven't worked with Rob for like a year and a half, but I know how good he is, and yeah, I think he beats Costa quite soundly, which sucks for him because he had I think that it was a really good ability for him to gain momentum against Costa. He really had some momentum going. So I hope someone steps up and Rob's able to get a payday for himself and also be able to showcase his skills against another opponent. JG says, you're the best, Fab, by far the most underrated MMA channel. Thank you, man. I'm really flattered by that. And I love watching and, doing all this stuff with you guys. It's the best. I really, really, really enjoy it. So I really appreciate, all the support and everything that you guys do. And I love just talking about the fights and just hanging out here. I'm just looking for make sure that we've covered all the fights and all the results. So no, I love it, man. So please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Gigi says, yo, I swear I just saw Costa on a live Brazilian podcast legit 2 hours ago. Yeah, yeah. Do you think Venom will do better than Reebok? I no idea. I believe the Holland hype train. Yeah, man. He looks the goods. I just, I want to see a little bit more of him. I'm kind of like, I can't go off like, I think this guy will win. I kind of I have to go on some objective truths, on some objective facts on some of the stuff that I can see. Um, I really want to see Islam against Gaethje, and who do you think wins this fight? I think Islam beats Gaethje if Gaethje can't catch him with something. I I think that the biggest disparity there, and it was shown in the Khabib fight, is Gaethje on his back. Gaethje on his back does not have like. I'm not saying he can't grapple. I'm sure he can grapple his ass off, but there's parts of a fight where he's not that good, and the part where he's not that good is when he gets put flat on his back. And when he gets put on his back, he does not have the. Can he scramble and get to his feet? 1,000%. Can he grapple? 1,000%. This is not a criticism of Justin Gaethje. I'm a fucking huge fan of Gaethje. But if Islam gets him on his back, it's gonna be bad, And Islam can put him on his back. We've seen that with Khabib. So I think Islam wins that, unless Gaethje can catch him. CSS Voden says Brunson was beating Yoel. He was, but he lost, and he lost bad, in that fight. And at the time, I remember when we were preparing for Brunson, I remember looking at a lot of the fights, and there was a massive difference in Brunson after about 7 minutes, 7 or 8 minutes. At the time, he may have fixed that, um, but there was a massive thing. That's why, like, we were expecting him to come out strong. We were expecting him to come out firing. Not we weren't expecting him to come out the way he did against Rob, but we were expecting him to come out, you know, and go hell for leather in that first round. And we knew that towards the end of the second round to be patient because he's a very different fighter. And that was the case against Romero. That's kind of what we were expecting when Rob fought him. But the one thing that in that fight, Rob and him, that right at the start of the fight, if you watch it, Rob catches him with like they stood for a second. No, that Brunson hadn't gone off yet, and Rob hit him with this like lead kind of jab uppercut, just bang, hit him, and like the speed disparity between the two was huge at that point. And I saw it. It was like bang. One guy was in fast forward, the other guy was in slow motion. And as soon as Rob hit him, Brunson went off, and Brunson went off and through, but he wasn't landing them on Rob. He wasn't landing the shots on Rob, and he couldn't get Rob down. And we were watching it, and I was thinking, like, if unless he lands something flush, but Rob was covering up, I was thinking this guy's not gonna be around for the second round. He's not gonna. There's no way he could do that output in the first round and fight in the second round. We were expecting to wear him out. That Rob would wear him out towards the end of the second, and then pour on in the third. But like the end of that that first round, like it was crazy the output that he put on. Um, I think that Brunson has all the potential to be a fantastic fighter, and he is a great fighter. I I just think maybe if he can kind of slow it down a little bit. The way he fought Shabazian was really good, and you could see that he was a veteran, and Shabazian was a young guy coming through. Matt Heffler says Khabib said Islam's grappling is comparable to his own. Justin may end up drowning again. I think yes, I think that Islam will beat Gaethje if he gets to the ground. Having said that, Gaethje is not a punk. Like it's not like he can't knock him out standing or something. Propane says, "What about the recipe for the omelet that Aljo tried to make after his last fight?" Fuck that one you can do on your own. Um, Sorry guys, I just have to skip a few just to. The only Connor Shaw fan thought Justin versus Chandler was in the works according to Ariel. No idea. Propane says, "What's his illness?" Rob should wait for the Bellator lightweight tournament. Okay. Sub coach. This is from Hanoi Tripper. Did you talk about Masvidal versus Usman yet? Do you think it's a waste of time? No, I don't think it's a waste of time, but I would have rather seen Masvidal versus Colby, and this is just me. What I would rather have seen: Masvidal versus um, Colby, maybe Wonder Boy versus Usman, or Wonder Boy versus Edwards, or Burns versus Edwards, and Wonder Boy versus Usman, something like that. We spoke about it earlier. I don't think it's a waste of time. I'm always going to be interested. I'm interested to see if how Masvidal does in this fight. I think Masvidal has all the tools to be able to beat Usman. I don't know that he will. Um, the Golden Snitch says Gastelum deserves a Rob fight, possibly. Um, um, why is Till getting promised a third title shot if he can muster together a one fight win streak? I don't know, mate. I don't know. Okay, I'm just kind of skipping through a few, so I'll catch up. Who do you think Volk's biggest challenge is outside of Ortega and Holloway? I think Volkanovski has a big challenge right now with Ortega. I don't know. Like outside of them, the thing is, just because one fighter loses badly to another, it doesn't mean that like Zabit or Calvin or any of those guys aren't good hard challengers if they can string a couple of wins together. Yeah, there isn't like, but right now it's Ortega, and Ortega is no joke. Um, Okay, Peter Yan versus Cory San Hagen is one of the most interesting matchups in the UFC, in my opinion. Yes, it is, but Peter Yan still has to do the Aljamain fight. I'd like to see that fight again. It's interesting to see what kind of adjustments they're both going to make. Um, the Sanhagen fight would be really good to see as well. Um, but I really wanted to see that, man. I really, 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 really wanted to see the Aljamain Sterling Peter Yan fight. That was, man, I really wanted to see that. So yeah, it says it's very upsetting why Volk doesn't have more fans. He's a great guy and a great fighter. Yeah, man, it is. It is. It's kind of weird, to be honest. Fab, my girlfriend is on top of me right now. How do I put her in a Kimura? It's a figure four. Like, you got to grab her, grab your own wrist, and then reef on it, man. Grab her wrist, just get a good firm grip, go over the elbow, and just grab on and just reef, 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 reef. Um, I like the sound of TJ versus Sandhagen. They've got similar movement. Um, Man, I don't even know why TJ's allowed to fight like that. You know what I mean? Um, that's kind of weird. I kind of gathered that Yarn looks like a bad matchup for Sterling, although who knows how that rematch would look. I agree with you, but Sterling came out again like when you fight like kind of like Kevin Holland fights, like you when you're doing flying knees to takedowns and you're throwing those kicks at a distance and you're doing all the stuff that Aljamain was doing, you can definitely catch people out. You can definitely catch them out. How do you think Cejudo would fare against Volk? Bisping joked about Volk coming down from heavyweight and Cejudo coming up from atomweight. Do you agree that Cejudo is too small for 145? Volkanov, I've seen Cejudo in real life, and he's like proper tiny, like a tiny little guy. And obviously, I know Volkanovski, and Volkanovski's not tall; he's short, but he's built like a brick, dude. Like he's like honestly, he's built like a fucking brick. Um, Having said that, I think there'll be a big weight difference. A big weight difference. So Hudo's frame is little. He's not going to be able to be that size against Alex. And Alex is used to fighting and training with bigger guys. But having said all of that, Cejudo's got interesting skill sets, in particular with his wrestling and whatnot, that is on different levels. Like it's on a different level. His wrestling, being a gold medalist, like how do I explain? Like people look at, like I'm just talking about freestyle, Olympic freestyle wrestling that we're talking about. I'm not talking about the cage control and all of this other stuff. I'm not talking about that. I'll just give a perspective into this. Like people look at Khabib's wrestling and they're like, holy shit, that's good. And I think Khabib wrestled at a cadet level, in like competitively at a cadet level, which is like under 16s or something like that, He was world champion in combat sambo, don't get me wrong, but I'm talking about Olympic freestyle wrestling. And those guys from Dagestan and all of those guys, like all the people of the steppe, all that whole region are gun wrestlers, right? Henry Cejudo beat everybody that you can think of. He beat the guys, the equivalent of the guys that beat Khabib. He beat them. He won a gold medal. He beat guys that beat them. So why I say this is like, whilst ever you have someone with that like disparaging like ability, I think he can go up and if Alex is not on, there are things that in the skill set which there is a big difference. There is a big difference in their wrestling, and it's not like Cejudo doesn't know how to apply the wrestling and the striking and everything to MMA. He's won 2 belts in 2 different weight divisions. So whilst Alex would definitely have the size advantage, and Alex can fight his ass off too, and Alex is great. His striking is very underrated, dude. I think it'd be an interesting fight. I do think it'd be an interesting fight. I think Alex might be a bit too big for him and a bit too clever for him as far as like with his Also, also being the fact that he's bigger, um, that might be a little hard for Cejudo. But I don't doubt that Cejudo can come to that party as well. Um, Nathan says, "Love your work, Fab. My question is, if you could change one rule in the unified rules, what would it be?" I would probably say let's do strikes to a downed opponent, being knees, soccer kicks, stomps, and then that would take away the other rules of the hand on the ground, etc. All that stuff. I don't really like that. Um, Having said that, I don't hate it. I don't, it's not that bad. But if I could change one thing, I'd do that. I'd say let's go with all strikes. Um, B. Johnson, who in your opinion has the most underrated jiu-jitsu in the UFC? My pick is Masvidal. I don't know, because Masvidal is pretty good, and I always thought he was pretty good. And I saw the way he grappled with Chiesa, I would say. Chiesa and Kevin Lee have some pretty underrated jiu-jitsu. Um, Rob Rob Whitaker, I think, has pretty underrated jiu-jitsu and grappling. Never been out grappled. He's never been out grappled. Never, you know, like in the UFC, he's never been out grappled. He's been out grappled early in his career outside of the UFC, but never in the UFC. Um, Volkanovski, never been out grappled, in the UFC. Um, they're guys that I think have underrated grappling. When you say jiu-jitsu, I'm going to say grappling. I think it's underrated. Um, Hoodley Jays Jr. says Alex manhandles Henry. Let's be honest, Jan proved that size matters. I don't know that Jan proved that. I think Jan proved that he got the better of Israel on that day. He definitely was a bigger guy. I think size matters. I've always thought that size matters, but the skill sets are different. Manhandling Henry Cejudo would be different. That's why I say to you, if Henry Cejudo was a striker, I would say to you that yes, Alex could probably manhandle him, but manhandle Henry Cejudo, Olympic gold medalist in wrestling, I don't think so. I don't think so. Not like that. I think Alex will probably win. I'd be going for Alex, of course, and I think Alex will probably win. But I don't know that he'd like manhandle him per se. I think he'd win. He's like a lot. He's a lot bigger guy. Um, do you think the perceived robbery Volk got against Holloway cost him some fans and/or got him unwarranted hate? Not really, because it would have got a lot of attention for him as well. I don't think he had any. Even if you thought that Holloway won, I don't think that Alex had anything to do with that. Like you know what I mean? It wasn't his decision either. Um, was I impressed? I didn't. I haven't seen. I haven't seen the food he cooked. Toby, is there a reason why we don't wear two mouth guards, one on top, one on the bottom? The only person I've seen like proper that I know wear it was a kid called Blake Barton who could wrestle his ass off, and it affects your breathing badly. Um, so Hudo's strong as fuck for his size. 1000% Jack Wood. Amelia, hey Fab, how many fighters in total assigned to UFC? You reckon about 400, give or take, 400 to 600, something like that. Nin Zaffa, love you Fab. I don't know why, but from time to time I go back to that Craig Jones podcast and laugh my ass off. Do you follow his career? Did he send you his leopard print rash guard? He didn't send me that rash guard, but I do. He did give me a rash guard though. He did give me one of the rashes. Um, I follow his career. Yeah, I follow the grappling a little bit. No, I don't follow anything like crazy. Like the UFC, I follow the fights. I don't listen to the drama. I don't get involved in the drama. I think Jan timed the clinches and shots perfectly, especially the way Izzy moves his upper body. Yes, but I'll tell you this: the biggest thing with Jan was the fact that he could not only engage Israel in the striking, but he was hitting him as well. He was hitting him, and he was getting the better of some of those rounds, and that's what allowed the takedown game to open up more. Um, Matt Heffler, if Yoel wins the light heavyweight tournament, does that make Rob the de facto Bellator light heavyweight king? No, no, it doesn't. Because Rob doesn't fight at light heavyweight. Rob doesn't fight at light heavyweight, and every fight's different. You know, those fights with Romero, they were fucking close, man. You know, Hamad Al Hadda. Fab, you're a good guy. What do you think of Wonderboy against Kamaru or Leon? Thank you, sir. I can be a good guy. I have been a good guy at past, and other times, Wonderboy against Kamaru or Leon. I'd love to see either one of those fights. They're very different fights. You know, I don't see too many people outstriking Wonderboy. Wonderboy's got a little bit more pop in his punch than Leon does. He's just got a little bit better timing, a little bit, I don't know if it's better timing than Leon, but he's just got a little more pop in that punch, in that straight right. Leon is a lot of it is his ability to cut the cage, his ability to get in and get out, hit you, but he doesn't have a hell of a lot of stoppages from strikes. You know, he definitely outstrikes people. Don't get me wrong, and I don't see. I don't know. I'd love to see that fight. I love them both. Leon Edwards probably my favorite fighter, one of my favorite fighters. You know, and I'm really cut that he didn't come on the podcast when I invited him. Kamaru, I think Wonderboy's got movement that can cause problems for Kamaru, but I think Kamaru could probably Kamaru him, get him up against the cage and whatnot. James Adjuceman, been thinking about a name for the podcast. Fabulous Tez, Biggie Tez TV is Fab is good. Fab's Lab, yours to keep, mate. James, I appreciate the effort, mate. You're the hero I need but don't deserve. Habib Nurmagomedov says, hello, brother. Is that the Khabib? Thank you, sir. Thank you for being on here. Matt Heffler, isn't Craig in Puerto Rico with the Donahat Death Squad? Possibly. I don't know. I think so. Jay, how do you think Kai Kara Francis' figure would go down? What were your thoughts with Kai's latest win? I think Kai carries a lot of power at flyweight, which is very rare. But now you've got a few guys that carry a bit of power at flyweight. So that's interesting. I think Kai is very, very, very good. I think he's got. I saw his fight with Brandon Moreno, you know, and Brandon Moreno did good work there, you know, like he kept throwing that left high kick to keep Kai's right hand at home. It'll be a good fight. I'd watch it. I'd like to see it for sure. It wouldn't be an easy fight. It wouldn't be an easy fight for either one of them. But I think Figgy's a little bigger, hits a little bit. We're going to say harder. You know what I mean? But Kai's he's very tidy, man. He's very, very tidy. You know, he survived that grappling exchange, and yeah, I think Kai's very good, man. B Johnson, Wonderboy's the only fight I've ever seen who can pull off lead leg hook kicks on a regular basis. Yeah, and he does it so well. There's no tell on his kicks either. Martovi, do you have a favorite accent within the UFC? No, not really. Not really. I like the. I'm not going to lie to you. I like when I don't know a fighter, and I ran into someone before, and I didn't know the fighter, and I usually know the Australian fighters, and when I hear the Australian or New Zealand accent, it does turn my head. You know, it does. Speaking of Wonder Boy, is there any other fights you'd recommend to look at though to understand ring craft more? I think that last fight, like, that stays in your head. Watching Leon Edwards, the way he was cutting the ring off and the way he was getting off the cage, very good. Some of Conor McGregor's fights, very good. He's got very good ring craft. Khabib is underrated ring craft in the way that he pressures you forward, takes the kicks and a lot of your heavy strikes off you because you're going into your back foot. That's not easy to do, man. You can't just run at people, you know, get hit. Like the way he does it, he cuts you off and kind of crowds you so you can't get your kicks off. He's actually very good. McGregor, Daly, Wonderboy, Rob, Israel, Dominic Cruz, TJ Dillashaw. Any of those fights I said just now, very, very good with the ring craft. Peter Yan. Um, Fab, how do you see Jimmy Crute versus Anthony Smith playing out? Much love from Melbourne. I love Jimmy Crute. I love Jimmy Crute, so I hope Jimmy Crute wins. But Anthony Smith is a big boy. Jimmy Crute's fucking massive though. Like he's huge. He's not. He's like kind of short for a light heavyweight, but he's built like a baby. Like he's built like a big giant baby. He's got a big head, big hands, real thick kind of torso. Man, I don't know. I think Anthony. I can't say too much because I know Jimmy. He's trained with us before. When So I can't say too much because I think there are some parts where Anthony Smith can give him trouble, and I think that Jimmy can give a lot of people trouble as well. So I hope that Jimmy beats him up in one round. I hope so. He hit super hard though, Jimmy. I was really bigging up Tucker before his fight to my mates, and a few seconds later, I was having to say, "I promise he's really good." Nah, he is really good, Chili Miners. You did the right thing. He is really good. He's no joke. He is really good. It's just it happens, mate. It's prize fighting, brother. What do you think about me versus Charles Oliveira? I think you have to be careful, Khabib, but I think you will probably get the takedown. I think you'll avoid the striking, and if you'll stay out of the submissions long enough, and I think you'll win. Emilio Z says, "Hey, just popping by, getting ready for work. First time to catch you live. Thanks for the great show. Big fan here. Greetings from a German carpenter." Man, thank you so much, man. I'm touched, man. I'm really, really touched. I really, really appreciate it. I love that you guys watch. I love that you guys support. It's so flattering, and I love just sitting here talking shit about the fights. To be honest, sorry, Stevie. Do you think that that given the Amanda Nunes run, that a male female fight would ever happen? What do you think would be an even matchup, i.e., weight, etc.? Like I said before, I think generally in the military, when they do stuff like that, it's like a 30% difference. Like because you're talking about elite level people. You're not talking about me fighting some woman's champion that's my weight. You're talking about two champions. Like you'd have to give at least 30% weight advantage to the woman. Which kind of like it's that in itself is weird, like if you weigh 70 kilos, what is that? Like, oh, fuck man, my maths is terrible. But what is that? Is that if you weigh 70 kilos, that's like 21 kilos or some shit. Is it? That can't be right. You know what I mean? Like, but it'd have to be to make it kind of fair. Like you just look at like usually what it is, it's like a boy, a 16-year-old boy, 17-year-old boy, probably even less, 15, 16-year-old boy is the same results as a woman physically, as a grown woman. Like if you look at the times that women run in the Olympics, you wouldn't make the finals, say in 100 meters, if you wouldn't make the finals in the under 18s boys. You wouldn't make the finals in the under 16s boys in 100 meters if you're a woman. And that's not me being sexist. That's just me telling you that's fucking facts. You can look that up. That's testosterone is real. That's why it's such a massive fucking deal when a man hits a woman because you're 10 times stronger. Um, so it's a huge, huge, huge difference. Like you need to have that weight disparity in place. That isn't to say that women aren't technically good or they're not even technically better in some aspects. That isn't the case, but that level of strength is ridiculous. Look at men's Olympic weightlifting. Look at women's Olympic weightlifting. The difference is huge. So it'd have to be at least 30% weight difference. So it wouldn't be, and the women just aren't that big. It'd have to be, I don't know, Amanda Nunes versus like the smallest guy you could find at atom weight or something. Um, oh, Stipe has fantastic ring craft as well. Absolutely, absolutely. Um, where did I buy the Dame Edna glasses? Thanks. Oh, Joe Schmo, why would you do that? Christian, when the UFC returns to Australia, should they bring in Aussie man for commentary? I haven't heard it. I've only heard him once or twice, and he's a funny dude. So my answer to that is yes. Let's say there was a couch building competition. This is from Martovi between all UFC fighters. Who do you think will do the best job, and who do you think will fail miserably? I have no idea, but there are a few that are tradies, so they'd probably do well. Usman KO's Masvidal by a spinning toe stomp first round. Could be. It could do. You don't know. It could be. Um, but yeah, guys, look, I've enjoyed chatting with you guys very much. We've covered more or less everyone. The only one we haven't covered is the Ryan Spann versus Misha Sirkinov. If anyone can give any feedback on that one, I find that Misha he's a little bit mechanic, not a little bit. He's a lot. He's very mechanical in his stand up. You know what I mean? He doesn't his grappling is very, very good, very high level grappler, but he's very mechanical in his stand up. And I saw that he was picking him off like Ryan Spann was looking for that check hook with the left hand when he was coming forward on the jab and setting up that right hand. And as I was doing the commentary, I said that. And then 2 seconds later, he landed that. He sort of threw the check hook. He didn't get him. Then he threw the right hand down the pipe and landed it. Only just hopped in, so sorry if you have already answered. Thoughts on who Leon should fight next from R Bumped? We have covered it. We have, but happy to go again. I think the consensus we were just kind of talking about it was um Burns would be a good fight to see. But you know what the problem is? Like, how many fights is Edwards going to win in a row, dude? Like, okay, he didn't win this one, but he looked good, man, and he looked like he was well on the way to winning it. But I don't know how many fights does he have to win before he gets a shot. Dan Ige, no, we spoke about Dan and that right hand. What happens with Dan is my question. Chili minus Spen seems like a really introspective guy. I can see him having a technical improvement like Poirier did. He's already looking way better than before, in my opinion. Man, I was so happy for him, and I wasn't even going for him. Like I wasn't going for either one of them. But when you see that real reaction from from the ground up when somebody gets a win, you love it. I love it. I love that. I love like seeing that realness in the character. I really like that. Um, but yeah, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much. Before I go, I'm going to, and then if you don't want to see this, I understand, but I do have to play it one more time. It's going to be an ad for Manscaped. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're talking about a very important topic, and that's a topic of weed whacking. Go to Manscaped, get 20% off plus uh, free shipping with the code FAB. And usually, when we talk about plucking those nose hairs and doing trimming around the ears and whatnot, most of us are used to doing that with weapons such as this. While effective, they can be cumbersome. They can prove to be cumbersome. And everyone's personal favorite is also this beauty, something like this. Whilst very effective, it's also hard because sometimes you don't have the right extension cords and whatnot. So Manscaped has given us this, the Weed Whacker. The Weed Whacker is skin safe. It has a replaceable head. It has high performance motor, so premium 9,000 RPM motor powers. This is something that you would have probably seen in a World War II aeroplane prior to this. And unlike the hedge trimmer, it's cordless and rechargeable, so you can use it anywhere and you can take it with you. And it's really, really a pretty amazing product. It has a smart design. It's intelligently contoured design for you to be able to grip it easily, and it's not going to slip out of your hand, which is an amazing segue to the next part of it, which is that fact that it's waterproof, so you can use it in the shower and whatnot. So this is a pretty amazing piece of machinery here for all of us that need it. And everyone needs it because you don't want to be that person. You don't want to be the person that has the nose hairs and the ear hairs sticking out. My dad used to take me to a barber in Liverpool, and ironically, this barber, it was an older guy, had the worst hairs coming out of his ears and the worst hairs coming out of his nose. And always, as a little kid, I used to always watch that. So I never wanted that myself. So please, Manscaped, get 20% off plus free shipping with the code FAB. Thank you, people. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. We just had to wake my daughter up from her nap. She's not very happy. But I just want to say thank you all, and I love the community that we have here. I really, really appreciate everything. Poor little one is not happy with me whatsoever. I had to wake her up. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting. Really, really love doing this podcast. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you get all the notifications. And take care, guys. And thank you so, so much. Take care. Ciao. Decir ciao. A ver, decir ciao, sí. Chao. Ay, qué bien. Decí chao otra vez. Otra vez. Chao. 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 Mira, mira. Chao. Take care, guys. Thank you. Thank you so much.